Hello, everybody. Welcome to All Villa, No Filler. Please remember to like and subscribe. Comment down below. Subscribe if you love the mighty Villa. And if you don't subscribe, apparently you support Birmingham City. So you got to subscribe now, haven't you? Anyway, did you see the interview yesterday with Neil Dunworth from For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast? One of the best people to talk about Aston Villa with, a lovely, lovely guy, a fantastic podcast, an inspiration to all Villa podcasters, I think. We talked all about the transfers that have happened so far this summer, but we also chatted about what we think Aston Villa might do this summer. Now, on the day of that interview, Tuesday, as it was, there had been a few rumblings about Jaden Philogene potentially coming to back to Aston Villa. But I didn't really put too much into it because I saw that the fee was agreed with Ipswich for 18 million. And that Everton as well were keen on getting him. I compared the two, Everton and Ipswich, and thought I think Ipswich is a better fit, probably just for the style of footballer he is. I think he probably just would suit the approach of Kieran McKenna at Ipswich better than he would Sean Dyche. It's not to say one manager is better than the other, but I just think for the profile of player that Philogene is, the Ipswich, for an up-and-coming manager who wants to prove himself with a player who's up-and-coming and wants to prove himself in the Premier League, I think that'd be a good relationship. But twist in the tail. This is like the Sixth Sense at the end when you find out. All right, I won't give it away in case you've never seen it, but most of us have seen it, and you know what I'm talking about, right? There was a twist in the end, a Shyamalan-like twist, where Aston Villa, it turns out, have activated the matching rights clause for Philogene after the Ipswich bid. So I'm just going off what Fabrizio Romano says here. He said that Unai Emery wants Jaden to be part of the squad for next season, while Villa would pay 30% less than 80 million offered by other clubs, as they have a sell-on clause. So that would mean if 30% down from 18 million, so you're probably looking at about 13-ish million quid. Wow. So we'd sell him for 5 million, bring him back in potentially for 13. That's spread over 5 years, amortized. So sign him. He comes in for 5. We sell him for 5 million. Over the 5 years, 30 million divided by 5. What's that? About 2 point something a year. So in actuality, we've made a profit on him. He's improved going away. That's if he comes back to Villa, of course. He's improved going to Hull, getting even more experience. Not bad, is it? Not bad at all. Really. You know, he went to Hull and he did 32 championship appearances, 12 goals, 6 assists off the back of another impressive season at Cardiff. Now, I'll look back firstly on when he was at Villa in pre-season last year before I talk about what he might do if he does come back. Firstly, pre-season last year, I thought of all the youth players that we had, I thought him and Kellyman were the two that stuck out to me, right? And they were the two that I thought might feature quite a bit this season. Now, with Philogene, he tended to play on the left side for Villa, but he also played at left back on occasion as well in pre-season. And the volume of game time he had and the number of starts he had, particularly on the US tour, and the fact that he had a cameo against Newcastle on the first day of the season coming on in the left side of midfield, makes me think that he would have played a fair amount last year had he not left. Now, part of me thinks it's very easy in hindsight to say, but I wondered at the time if he'd been a bit hasty in leaving. I wondered if, particularly in hindsight with the Jacob Ramsey injury, I guess the calculation he made, Philogene and his advisors, was Ramsey's going to come back in September, late September, as he did when he scored against Brighton last year. And therefore would probably just get far more game time and it would be harder for him to break through. Fair enough. I understand that thinking. The truth is, Ramsey ended up being pretty much out for the entire season, apart from having a couple of games here and there. So I think Philogene actually would have played a lot more than he reasonably calculated. But I think it's fair enough if he wanted to leave to get more games on. That's totally fair. And look, he got loads of games on. We got loads of great experiences. At a very good Hull side, who very nearly got in the playoffs. Um, they had a good manager as well. So again, that's just another. That's now two really good years at a very high standard in the Championship, in a very physical league, where he's been able to show what he can do on a regular basis. 12 goals from the wing, 6 assists. I think that's really good. And including, of course, that Rabona goal against Rotherham. He scored a couple of absolute wonderful goals for them. I know people at Cardiff as well who really, really rated him. And the truth is, what I saw of him in pre-season last year, I thought Emery clearly rates him as well, because there's a reason Emery keeps on featuring him. So when you look back on it, the 5 million fee to Hull, I thought at the time I was surprised, right? I thought, I just, seeing Ramsey go for 14 million to Burnley and seeing Cameron Archer go for 18 million, I thought, 5 million for Philogene feels quite low given looking at those other prices and given his clear talent. But now it all makes a bit more sense, doesn't it? I guess for Villa, apparently it's been reported that we'd already pre-agreed personal terms with him before he left. So clearly the conversations were had. You would logically think that you can go away and get a lot of games on, but we're going to keep a very close eye on you. And if a team comes in for you next year, there's a very good chance we're going to come in and make a bid as well. So I've seen a few theories flying around this today about will Villa just sort of buy him and then immediately sell him for profit. I doubt that. I don't think we'd do that. I think Villa would sign him with the intention of bringing him back and fully immersing him within the squad. Of course, as a homegrown player, that helps with quotas for the Champions League. And on top of that, a good thing it shows as well is that, this 30% discount clause that we didn't know anything about until just now. I think it was Jacob Tanzor on The Athletic who reported it first. It shows that we have people operating at this club who know what the bloody hell they're doing. You look back on Dr. Tony and his weird tweets. I mean, can you imagine what the hell he'd be doing in the transfer market? It's 15 million quid for Scott Hogan, mate. I mean, just wild to look back at the Randy Lerner era, spending as much as we want and giving massive wages to players who weren't really making us that much better, and then just turns the taps off and gives up. The Purslow era, he got a lot right. I think particularly the academy, and Philogene is a part of that. So you can. I think that's the thing I'd always praise him the most for, was focusing on the academy straight away. But if you look at that Gerrard year, spending big on a lot of players who didn't make enough of a differential for the huge salaries and the huge transfer fees we laid out for them. Coutinho's just gone on loan again, the second time today, to Vasco da Gama. That's a noose round our neck. And it, at the time, looked like it could end up being that anyway. A Danny Ings, 30 million, 125 grand a week, apparently. We did well to sell him for 15 million quid. And these players that we signed for big fees, big wages, past the sell-by date. Well, maybe not past the sell-by date, but it's felt like at their peak or past their peak and had no resale value. Whereas now, clearly the focus is youth. And also, you look at that discount fee we've just done. These are canny operators. Monchi knows what the hell he's doing, clearly. The team around him really knows what they're doing. And this just looks to me like Villa operate now with these kind of, clauses and thought out processes. We operate a bit more like a Southern European team. I associate these type of transfers not really with the Premier League. I don't really feel like you see it that often over here. I think of it more as something a club like Porto would do in Portugal. Maybe Benfica would do. Sell on clauses, sell on fees. I know Man City do this a lot as well. Sevilla, where Monchi was at before. Italian clubs do it with each other as well. It's just smart, canny. And, we're buying lots of, Jaden Philogene, 22 years of age, loads of experience. He knows Unai Emery. He's worked with him before, and Unai Emery knows him. And clearly, if Emery wants him back, that's a really good sign. Now, it does lay the question, what does it mean for the squad? Because you look around and you think, well, you see them all doing 100,000 kick ups to each other, balancing it on the net with each other, all on the left foot. They do a conga line and it's all, hopscotch, it's all on the left foot, but you sort of think, right, well, there's loads of people here who got the moves, right? You see them on dance floor, it's like dancing away like bloody, Michael Jackson or, just incredible dancers. They got it all, but you think, where does it all fit together? Where are the puzzle pieces going in here? And with Philogene, I've thought about this all day. Like, where does he fit? If you've got Samuel Ireland Jr., who's a left-sided skillful player who looks quite a similar profile to Philogene, if I'm honest. If you look at how he plays in the final third for Juventus, the sort of skill set he has isn't too different to Philogene at all. You got Morgan Rogers and Jacob Ramsey inside on the left. Now, Dan Pritchard, fantastic, 87 Pritch on Twitter. He suggested that Jacob Ramsey could end up going back into the double pivot, which I thought was a bit of a light bulb moment, because I remembered when Jacob Ramsey first came through at Villa, he did actually play there. And I remember him against Leeds when his first season, debut season, the confidence he had, ordering like John McGinn around and begging, asking for the ball right in that central position. And I wonder, maybe he does go back into that role. Maybe it turns out that he's actually brilliant at it. But for the moment, we have a Buendia can play there. Morgan Rogers can play out on the left. You got Jacob Ramsey. You got Samuel Ireland Jr., Ian Matson, Moreno, Luca Dean. Not all these players are going to stay at Villa. I'm fairly sure of it. But potentially, you got Philogene coming in as well. Now, what could he do? Well, firstly, he could actually be, and in the end, a backup for Leon Bailey and Moussa Diaby as a second striker and on the right. Because he does, the Rabona goal he scored came from the right. He does, if you watch him at Hull, he has played on the right. He does play out there. So it's not an alien position to him at all. But he's very much a player that you see and you think he clings to the touchline, doesn't he? He tends to be close to the line. Not really too central compared to, say, Morgan Rogers and a Jacob Ramsey and a Buendia. But then you look at Ireland Jr., you think, Ireland Jr. is the same player. He clings to the touchline. So what's going on here? Are Villa planning something? And I'm fascinated to see what we do, what Professor Unai has cooking up. Gordon Ramsay cooking up in his little pot, Michelin star meal that he's got, sprinkling on a bit of salt and pepper here. What has he got cooking up for pre-season and the early months of this season? Because if he brings in Ireland Jr. and Philogene, and the two of them like to generally play out left and cling to the left, does that mean Villa now maybe have games where, because generally we tend to have that Bailey out right, don't we? What if we have Bailey doesn't play some games, and then maybe you have a Buendia plays there and plays a bit more in the centre, and then Nedeljkovic is the one who bombs up the right. It's doing the job that we all know Matson's going to do on the left at some point. Alex Moreno's done on the left as well. And then actually Philogene and Ireland Jr. come in and they then cling to the left. So if you think about it, Villa, like a seesaw, have gone from Bailey's the one stretching the game out that side. And now this time, actually, we're going to swing it over to the left-hand side, just as a different approach. Maybe even we can have Bailey and Philogene or Ireland Jr. both clinging out wide and we do something totally different. Maybe we go to a back three. Maybe there's two wide and Philogene can be that, play out right and left and go back and forward. Whatever it is, it's difficult to think right now what's going on inside the genius mind of Vincent van Gogh, Professor Unai that we have right now. Starry night, paint your palette. Can't remember the colours now. Blue and grey. Fascinating. It just again offers more options, but it does leave me wondering. I'm going to be sitting here pondering and considering, like that meme with the person who's thinking like that, like, what's the plan here? And I think it's good. I'm excited. I think it's another good squad addition for one of the most gifted young players in the Championship last year. And look at how well Morgan Rogers did stepping up from the Championship. Philogene at 22 years of age, with the record he's had at both Cardiff now and Hull, there's no reason he can't come into Villa and, you know, be a really, really effective player. I hope he does. I'm excited by it because I always trust in Professor Uno. But fascinating to know what it means for Villa. Fascinating to know what the plan is, and I think pre-season might start to reveal a few different things. And by the way, wasn't it good seeing those pictures of handsome Tyrone Mings, handsome Emi Buendia, and handsome Jacob Ramsey? Those three handsome amigos back in training, looking suave, smiling away, loving life, back from injury. Don't know when they'll fully be back, fully fit, but hopefully we get to see it. You know, we don't know about Mings yet. We'll wait and see. But at least, hopefully, Ramsey and Buendia for sure. Hopefully, we can see the two of them in pre-season, and they're raring to go. And suddenly, you think of those three players coming back. Doesn't the squad just look that bit stronger again? Doesn't it? I think there's going to be interesting moves this summer. I wouldn't rule out another outgoing. Obviously, John Duran to West Ham, 35 million quid again with the apparent. Was it 10% sell-on clause? Whatever it was. Monchi knows what he's doing. Emery knows what he's doing. I think there's going to be a bit more action, a lot of interesting moves happening. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough. Please remember to like and subscribe. Subscribe if you love Jaden Philogene, even if he doesn't come back to Villa. I wish him all the best because I love to see Aston Villa players or people who've come through Aston Villa go on and have great careers. So whatever he chooses to do, I do wish him all the best, but I really do hope he comes back to Aston Villa. Anyway, up the mighty Villa.